Live.
News.
Welcome to the John Doe Radio Show, where we talk about cannabis news and cannabis entertainment, cannabis information. Man, that doesn't really turn down until I get to like 5, 4, 2. Weird. That's weird. Check something real quick. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us here on the John Doe Radio Show. Hopefully you're having a good day wherever it is that you are at. And, yeah, things are going well. Fantastic with you. Today, In news, by the way, thank you big time to the people that make the show possible. Hopefully you like this gray background a little bit better. I like it a lot better for what we're talking about and, you know, what we're going on and on and on about. I don't know, that purple just is cool, but it's cool for Twitch. Is it cool for us? Yeah, I don't know. You know, big time people make John Doe Radios possible. The listeners. And make sure that you go to, is it getseedsrighthere.com? They can get all that information. I use Discord for everything. It's not the easiest to access everybody for Discord. But yes, Get Seeds Right Here. Gotta say thanks to the Bike and the crew over at Get Seeds Right Here. He's got a crew. There's a crew now. It's a crew. It's a crew. So, seeds and growing talk and the like, etc. We're going to be talking about here very soon. And probably sometime this week we'll get Adam Dunn on. I'd like to have somebody on with, you know, like 10 guests maybe. So we'll have to reach out to the Instagram, the Get Seeds Right Here Instagram. Then we'll have to reach out to the Adam Dunn Show outreach and get him in here, have a little private conversation with a small group of people and hang out. I just feel really stupid if we invite anybody else we don't know. And the numbers are very readily able to be, like, you can check, you can see what the numbers are and shit, you know what I'm saying? Reset the computer and the volume seems a little low on the mic. Let's see here. Digital board, baby.
Digital board. Gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
That's set at 36. All right, whatever. It's good to go. I think I just moved down the compressor, etc. and shiz. But yeah. Big thanks to Get Seeds Right Here. We also have a schedule you can see below. If you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube, you can catch us live on twitch.tv/John Doe Radio Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Mountain Time. If for some reason the shizzle hits the fizzle and we can't get it done then, it'll be 10 or 11. We're going to hit 10 o'clock. Standards, you know, we got to have standards here on the JDR. So make sure that you're hanging out with us then. If not, the shows can always be listened to later on YouTube. I'll upload those to our YouTube channel, the John Doe Radio Show YouTube channel. Not the Tim Doe, it's the John Doe Radio Show YouTube channel. So you can check that out. Or they're on here for a week and a half or so, a little bit more. If you'd like to check that out here, clips, etc. can be easily kind of done that way too, but then it moves over to YouTube. And then we'll host all the shows there. I've got it right now currently, so nothing is being claimed. So none of the music and shiz in the background has been claimed in multiple shows. So we're gravy. Got to thank Blunty for the music on that. The man. Blunty also has a drone podcast going on YouTube also. So we'll have to maybe discuss with him about that. Check in with the homies. Today in news, what we've got for you is a few interesting stories. Judge voids South Dakota's marijuana legalization initiative, finding voter-approved measure was unconstitutional. This is, goddamn South Dakota. South Dakota State Judge ruled last year's voter-approved initiative to legalize marijuana for adults 21 and over is unconstitutional and cannot go forward, though advocates plan to appeal. I know South Dakota was going to pull some bullshit. They passed it by the smallest margin and was the most difficult. It didn't look like it was going to go there, but it did. And now we're sitting here with a judge saying it's unconstitutional. Next one we got for you today. Major marijuana coalition forms to coordinate legalization push, but some key players are not involved. We're talking about Congress and everything on a federal level. And then we've also got GSP. I don't even watch MMA that much. So to add GSP, the only thing I can think of is GSP would be George St. Pierre. But where that came from, I don't know. I'm not sure. GOP. It's just me trying to move fast is what it was. GOP congressman recognizes that marijuana legalization reduces demand for illegal product. Just read it like that. So another story from Republican side of things and the conservative side of things, and a view on how that is being what's the word I'm looking at? Rumorated in their brain, bounced around in their brain. And then also Connecticut Governor's Marijuana Task Force issues social equity recommendations for legalization. And, I had one more here. Idaho, medical marijuana activists approve for signature gathering amid legislative complications. I think I mentioned that yesterday, but I'm not sure I read the whole story. Holy shiz. Oh yeah, I did have a lot more today than I thought I did. Because a bunch of stuff came up yesterday after we were done. Marijuana stocks surge. I don't necessarily enjoy talking about the stocks because it is not my most, It's 428 GTO, subscribe with the Prime. Woo! Got that Prime, baby. Oosha gabba. Did it play the alert? Oh yeah. Was there a sound with it too? It shows there was maybe no sound. Let me go one more time. Yeah. I didn't hear it. Did you guys hear it? Wait. You've been... This whole time you've been standing there as I've been muted. Wait, you answered my question. You said, that's me. We're all here. So if I'm still muted, how can you still hear me? How, what? What? I'm gonna punch you in your face. Are you sure you can't hear me? Nobody else can hear me. One, two, check. 1, 2. 1, 2, check. Is everything going fine? Yeah, but was everything fine until a point? You said it's still muted. Was it muted the whole damn time? And then you said, no, like at the beginning, I'm here, blah, 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 blah. Now, where did it get fucked up, though, is what I'm saying. You stopped hearing me? All right, I get it. I see what went wrong. I'm starting again. We're going to do this right. No worries. It's all good. few extra people here. That's all. I'll be right back. As soon as I figure out why the buttons are... Okay.
So high, it needed clearance from NASA. It's John Doe Radio.
It's the John Doe Radio Show. How much higher can you get?
Well, what the president said during the campaign, you'll be surprised to know, will be consistent with what we'll be doing here in law enforcement.
And now talking about legalizing marijuana and taxing marijuana to solve budget problems.
Prohibition doesn't work. Maybe after 71 years, it's time for a new approach.
We should be able to give our kids the message we think is appropriate.
A rational, safer choice.
Great celebration of freedom.
Legalize the possession of marijuana.
John Doe Radio. Live.
Okay, we do it live. Thank you for hanging out with us. It is the John Doe Radio Show. We talk about cannabis news, cannabis entertainment, cannabis edibles, cannabis concentrates, cannabis funny, cannabis not funny, cannabis this, that. You get it, you get it, you get it, you get it, you get it. We like to be as educational as possible here on the JDR, so hopefully you do learn something. And right now, concentrating on the news side of things. Soon, gonna have some awesome guests here on the JDR, hopefully later this week. We can get them anytime. Just want to make sure that we get people when we have people here. I don't want to embarrass ourselves with nobody here. It's fine. It's going to be recorded. People can go back and listen to it. If it's a worthy enough interview, then yeah, people will go and find it, check it out. So, seed companies, growers. I got interested today specifically, and I'm looking for information on it. I'm going to track down who's the best to talk to about this, but cryo-freezing, cryo-curing cannabis. Cryo-cure is a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe we should add that word into it because it's funky putting that word into the thing. But basically, being able to dry out your cannabis and in a very short amount of time, and this saves tons of money, pretty much would pay for itself, really, if you sold the flower. But then again, a lot of this science and tech goes into play with extractions and the like, and preserving terpenes and preserving the cannabis plant exactly as it is. I don't know about this song, though. That one's not gonna work. It figures a song with the word Twitch in it. Didn't work. No, just kidding. But the technology and the techniques used with this whole cryo freeze is a very, very, very interesting topic to me, just because of the things that I've learned, I think, in the previous few years with basically preserving the cannabis plant as it is, as I was saying, from the plant growing alive, taking the terpenes and the oils, which cannabinoids all included in the essential oils, as they are, and with as little degradation as possible, taking these and implementing these into different products. And at the pharmaceutical level, this is something that is being looked at very much so behind closed doors for a while now. The preservation side of things, and then what's going on in that, and then trying to dissect, which all plugs into dissecting the cannabis genome and all that goes with it. So just basically being able to take apart the puzzle with cannabis, the cannabinoids, finding out what each element does, how it plugs in with another, and how it can best affect a person moving forward. So all the things we've talked about with the terpenes and how they affect you, eventually getting to a point where you can create a product where it fits exactly with what that person is looking for based on science this way. So there is a lot of bastardizations and shitty things that can happen in the pharmaceutical industry. I do understand that. I completely understand that. We're not going to argue that. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, we would have a lot of shitty diseases and probably still be living in the dark ages if it weren't for the good side of all that. So to me, when I see things like that, you know, I've heard about this and known about this, obviously with concentrates for a while now. But this process 3-4 years ago, hard to put dates on shit, but like 3-4 years ago, this was talked about behind closed doors in a meeting with a previous employer and a very large, very, very large company. It's not even a company, it's a conglomerate, an investment firm, a vacuum sucker up of ideas and then spitting them out. Shitty, but that's just the way that it happens. But this thing was talked about, and it coming to fruition in different ways is fascinating to me. So anyway, I think Mike was telling the post that I saw today that triggered me of being like, oh shit, there's actually people starting to do it. I was like, I got excited about a new tech. It's been a while since I've been excited about a new tech, and we'll look into that. We'll see who can share information. The basic information is out there, you know, for plants and how this process goes through, but cannabis being the unique plant that it is, it's going to be different. There's going to be different techs. There's going to be different ways of operating to get to usable products in the end, whether it be smokable or concentrate wise. So the testing part, there are oils and essential oils of the cannabis plant that are highly volatile. I guess I don't know if that's the right word exact scientific wise for, you know, what we're talking about here, but in the volatile in the meaning that they disappear very quickly. So disappearing when they're off the plant or on the plant at room temperature. Certain essential oils, parts, and cannabinoids leaving it as it starts to dry out and as it's being cured through dry flower, and then also through the extraction process. You know, you lose cannabinoids and cannabinoids and terpenes, which, you know, all the same kind of thing, essential oils, as you go. So however we can preserve that at the very beginning, and then some science saying that some of those that are disappearing very quickly are some of the more possibly helpful ones or keys to the puzzle. Anyway, it's exciting. Learning how to put take the puzzle apart and put it back together. Very fascinating thing to me, because the idea that people are using their cannabis the wrong way or choosing their cannabis the wrong way, as we talked about before, based on indica sativa, etc., is a very archaic way of choosing to go about finding these things for yourself. So I guess it's the nerd in me. Oh, that's the wrong button. This is what I'm looking for right here. This is the nerd in me that wants to see it. I already feel more comfortable with this gray and black. What do you think, Mike? Do you like the gray and black a little bit more? I feel like if I turn up more, I'm going to peak out, but it's like not close to where it was yesterday, so. Need a green screen that works? I mean, I can flip. The green screen works fine. I mean, the green screen works fine. Watch. Now here we go. Right here. Click this. Actually, let me go back to Studio Talk. And then... For you, my friend, I show this to you. I show this to you. Watch. Is it that one? No, it's not that one. Is it that one? Yeah, it's that one. I just have the light in the wrong spot. If I move the light back a little bit, it needs to shine a little bit more light in the back here.
Do you know what I'm saying? Yes, yes.
Do it like that, and a little bit of smoothness to it. And it's all dark, and then E-spill reduction right there. Pull it back here. Yeah, it just needs a brighter light. Yikes. What do you mean, yikes?
Yikes.
Look at you. Derailing an already derailed show.
You can't derail a train that's already been derailed.
You don't like the way it looks? I mean, it looks decent. It's just his brightness off of the screen, and it cannot be auto irised. There's no, the lens butthole doesn't wink. You know what I'm saying? Can you see my eye? Dear God, what is happening? All right, so as we get on to the regular news. South Dakota. Jesus criminy. Man, it's like, where is it? Let's see here. Map of the U.S. Let me see something here. I've got an idea. Hold on. Map of U.S. And this violin in this song isn't gonna work either. Nope. All right, so we have a map of the U.S. here. Display, back to it. I'll tab back to OBS. We got Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa. Here's the thing. 1, 2, moving slowly. Just started talking about it. What is it with like this area? I mean, there's nobody in this area right here, so you can't really talk about it. But what is it about this area specifically right here, where it has a Colorado feel to it? I can't really inflict in you the Colorado feel and what that really is and whatever, but it's just kind of a thing. It's like a city mountain dweller person with chill, relaxed weed. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it to you. This is a way about Colorado, all right? Wyoming doesn't really have it. Nebraska doesn't really have it. Montana does a little bit. North Dakota and South Dakota, I don't know. Not really. I understand Montana and the things that have happened in Montana. The moving forward and then completely farking the couch and moving backwards. It's just such a weird situation in North Dakota and South Dakota where they have a progressive thought and progressive laws that have moved forward, but then get slapped down. There's such a 50-50 divide of people there that are, I don't know. It's a weird mix of people in North Dakota, South Dakota, and then Montana. I would expect if there's more people in Montana, that Montana would be a little bit more progressive than what it is. But nobody wants to move to Montana. So they don't really get like new people. I don't know. It's just this area. It's and then Idaho. We could throw Idaho into that mix too. Like, what the fuck is it? This whole area right here. Kind of unlike a lot of unlike anywhere else in the United States. I don't know. I just see a pattern. That's all I'm saying. Y'all farked up in some sort of way. Need to figure it out, okay? I can say that because I also am farked up myself, but the difference is I'm trying to figure it out, okay? You're not. South Dakota judge has ruled last year's voter-approved initiative to legalize marijuana for adults 21 and over is unconstitutional and cannot go forward, though advocates plan to appeal. So both sides of the spectrum we sit here when we talk about Arizona and South Dakota. We'll just use those two. Arizona and South Dakota. So you have South Dakota passed legalization at the same time Arizona did. Arizona currently has been enjoying for a couple weeks now. Couple weeks? Yeah, it was about a couple weeks. Sales on the retail level to customers and to the citizens of their state, which said, hey, this is what we want. So I understand that we cannot use Arizona as the example and that it is an outlier. But at the same time, when you put a state like South Dakota or the things that have happened in Montana up against these, it's the most frustrating bullshit, doesn't make sense type of situation until you start to dig in and you look at demographic, etc. So the initial shoot from the hip reaction is like, what the fuck? You know, what I come to the table with, you know, and like face palm and just like, I thought we were past this type of shit. Obviously not. Judge Christina Klinger of the state's 6th Judicial District Court ruled Monday that the measure, Amendment A, includes multiple subjects rather than a single issue as required by the state constitution. She also wrote that because the measure has far-reaching effects on the basic nature of South Dakota's governmental system, it should have been referred to the voters through the constitutional convention process instead of a simple amendment. Failure to submit Amendment A through the proper constitutional process voids the amendments, Klinger wrote in Monday's ruling, and it has no effect. Brendan Johnson, sponsor of Amendment A and an attorney for South Dakotans for Better Marijuana Laws, told Marijuana Moment after the ruling that reform advocates will appeal Klinger's ruling to the highest court in the state. We disagree with the ruling. We're prepared on appeal, blah, 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 blah. Let's get more information here. For now, the decision is a win for law enforcement leaders who filed the challenge. Well, that's a surprise. The lawsuit with the backing, has the backing of, oh, God damn it, I forgot. This is South Dakota. Son of a bitch. This woman, this person, I would have said this man if it was a man, okay? I'm not saying this woman because, you know, it's this woman or whatever, you know, and I'll just take my shovel over here and leave. I'm kidding. I forgot South Dakota, the governor of South Dakota was Kristi Noem. That makes a little bit more sense at this point in time. No, I understand now. God dang. So we watched a video of her. If you watch any video of her, she just does not seem like the smartest person. She's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, for sure, when it comes down to it. God dang, man. I don't see how she gets voted in and continues to stay in office. That's one thing. It's just, how do some of these people, we have a few here in Colorado that need to be taken out and sat down and said, hey, you're not in charge of anything anymore. I understand. So I feel I could say this, be a little judgmental. This is one of those people, doesn't matter conservative or Democrat, Republican, Democrat, that's just absolutely gotta go. That represents the absolute worst in what we have to offer in America, and failure and no new roads. More than 54% of voters approved the change last November. I am pleased with the court's decision today. I realize the Supreme Court will likely have the opportunity to address our constitutional concerns on their merits, State Highway Patrolman Superintendent Colonel Rick Miller, who filed the lawsuit with Pennington County Sheriff Kevin Tome, said in a statement on Monday. Amendment A was set to take effect July 1st. If it survives the court challenge, it will legalize all forms of marijuana and set up a system of tax and regulate sales of the drug. Measure 26, a separate statutory change passed alongside Amendment A last election to allow patients with certain medical conditions to access cannabis for therapeutic use, is not affected by Monday's ruling. Critics have complained that Governor Nome's explanation of her role in the litigation has shifted over time. In November, a spokesperson for her office said Nome did not ask Miller or Tome to bring... Is it Tome or Tom? Thom to bring the lawsuit, but an executive order she signed in January said that on November 20th, 2020, I directed Rick Miller to commence the Amendment A litigation on my behalf in his official capacity. She never, ever, not in one single moment intended, even though she said, I'll pass through the voters' will if it comes down to it, and we will have it move forward if it comes to that point. She knew that shit was not going to come to that point. She knew there was not a single intent to implement this voter-approved legalization. None. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. We would have had to take her to court, and it would have had to be a situation of us fighting her to correctly implement it. Resting on the Attorney General also during that fight. So, yeah. I'm telling you, man, the conservatives is just like grasping for straws and somehow got this one. Let's read this again. Monday measure includes multiple subjects rather than a single issue as required by the state constitution. Also wrote that because the measure has far-reaching effects on the basic nature of South Dakota's governmental system, should have been referred to voters through the constitutional convention process instead of a simple amendment. I'm not sure that there's too much of a difference in the voters' minds for that. Like, what is the real difference between constitutional convention and simple amendment? No, not that constitutional convention. She may be referring to the state forming something and then putting it forward. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's a matter of semantics and small details. The law still presented to the public, passed as is. I'd like to have it right in front of me. It's too bad that this, this is a lawsuit. Is it in here? I'd like to know, and I should have looked in here, what the second part was and what the what the actual problem was with it and the two things that were passed. Anyway, we'll keep up on this. This is a frustrating situation. Actually, you know what? South Dakota's marijuana. We got time here. Marijuana law. Getting dangerous here.
Googling live on the Twitch.
Cannabis in South Dakota. South Dakota's Constitutional Amendment A. There we go. Marijuana legalization lawsuit. Here's the lawsuit. Wow, they quick with that. Proponents reported submitting more than 50,000 signatures. So it's submitted by former U.S. Attorney for District South Dakota. Marijuana Initiative was also, where's the god dang ballot summary? Constitutional amendment legalizes possession, use, transport, distribution of marijuana. Possess, distribute less than an ounce of marijuana plants. Yeah, also used under certain conditions. Authorizes State Department must enact rules. Amendment. Judicial clarification amendment may be necessary. Amendment legalizes some substances considered a felony. What's the second part? Is it individuals may possess or distribute 1 ounce or less marijuana plant and marijuana produced from those plants? Are they talking about? They're talking about commercialized cannabis and creating a commercialized system and legalizing cannabis for adults 21 and over. So these can be the only two things that they're talking about being a multiples and the basis of this lawsuit. So, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I pretend to be one all the time. I would say there's a good chance of this not flying through. The only problem is this type of shit has happened in other states. You know, Oregon, happened in Washington, and delayed the implementation of systems. The implementation of and the actual formation of regulation and bills that regulate this, implement the licenses, etc., and hobbled that for an extraordinary long time in places that were generally friendly with cannabis when it came down to it. This not necessarily the most friendly of states when it comes to cannabis. So we will see what happens. The frustrating part about this, when you look at the law, and if it's the two things that they're cutting off, forming a commercial, or saying that there's two, legalizing marijuana for adults 21 and over, possession, blah, 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 and then a separate being a commercialized system for sales of cannabis. We talk about all the time putting together comprehensive bills and putting together something, you know, taken from successful states and successful programs all over the United States. You know, really, you should just choose to copy what Colorado has done and then take that to your state and change very little, almost nothing, and you'll be good. I do get that there needs to be discussion and arguments in your state, but here's the thing. We've already found out what works and what does not work. Separating these two issues out, I mean, administratively, if that's what has to be done, is so extremely frustrating and such an obvious wedge into progress, an attempt by conservative parties, whoever they may be, don't like what we're doing with legalization and moving things forward, just to blatantly try and suffocate that system. I mean, it's weird. It's how did it end up on the ballot? Number one, like, isn't there checks and balances for that type of thing? So it's frustrating. This is we generally, I think, see the court uphold certain rules and cannabis laws that have been passed by the people. Now, there are the regulated parts in that process, outside the framework, which, if done right, is stable and is very hard to attack in a court of law, especially if the laws and the framework is built inside your state constitution. The argued part about these things that become an issue a lot of the time is what is argued inside of the chambers, the legislative chambers, and added after the fact. The regulating rules, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the things that get overturned a lot more, especially something that was voted on into the Constitution. Let's see, where were we at this article? I'm pretty sure we were almost done with it. Amendment A, Measure 26, critics complained. We already got that. Despite governors' pushback on cannabis reform, some state lawmakers are taking steps to prepare to implement what voters approved. Last month, a group of 16 Republican legislators in the state formed what they call a cannabis caucus, giggity, to address marijuana issues in this year's session. So you got a point that you have to build a coalition to fight one powerful person. Marijuana coalition. Speaking of coalitions, as Congress moves to legalize marijuana under the new Democratic majority. Wait, oh yeah, I was checking the chat here since I haven't looked up. Len's butthole. Yeah, I said that in the beginning. I'll be in the garden for a couple minutes, but leaving the stream on, lights on. Hopefully your plants enjoy my beautiful, sultry voice of awesomeness here. You know? Set the speaker right next to him. And then turn the bass up. Kind of like in that Howard Stern show, Private Parts. And then I can talk to him and get that low voice going on. That's it. All right, that's enough of that. As Congress moves to legalize marijuana under the new Democratic majority, a large coalition of cannabis businesses and advocacy groups have formed in the hopes of advancing the issue this session. The United States Cannabis Council, USCC, which is being headed on an interim basis by Marijuana Policy Project Executive Director Stephen Hawkins, will advocate for federal legalization and promote social equity for the industry. This part right here, the last part with Marijuana Policy Project, is encouraging because we have seen great things from the Marijuana Policy Project. Great things, okay? There are national organizations and local organizations that are going to play the game and push some things maybe more than you would like, maybe more than you feel they should be pushed, maybe more meeting the other side a little bit closer to their side than we should be. It happens less and less and less the more cannabis legalization reform is supported. But Marijuana Policy Project has been one of the most realistic organizations on a national level, and then also working hand in hand, helping contribute funds and service whatever is needed to state initiatives that have been very, very successful too. So they have Mason Tvert, who was the head of SAFER here in Colorado, and outside of the grassroots activity and everything that happened here in Colorado, the reason why we have legalization here in Colorado, him figuring out how to pull all that together and sew everybody into a nice, wonderful, comfortable quilt that worked together and covered, and where I'm going with this, I don't know, kept everybody warm and cuddled and fuzzy to cannabis legalization. Anyway, whatever. There's things during that process that weren't exactly the things that you would like to see. You know, home grows in some situations have not been that successfully argued. There's been limitations on how much cannabis you can have at home, or how much cannabis you can actually buy, or limitations on serving sizes, etc., etc., etc. Marijuana Policy Project, one of the most realistic, as I mentioned, at looking and then being effective at these discussions and, for lack of a better term, negotiations, really, when it comes down to it. So that's good. It's very good. If there's anybody that I know of, any organization, you know, MPP, NORML, NCIA, Drug Policy Alliance, as they're all listing them off in this next paragraph, MPP is it. New outfit says it will present a unified voice advocating for the descheduling and legalization of cannabis, but the prevalence of mostly business among its membership and the absence of some key advocacy and industry groups such as NORML, not a surprise. Drug Policy Alliance, not a surprise. Americans for Safe Access, not a surprise. NCIA, not a surprise. Minority Cannabis Business Association, that should be included. National Cannabis Roundtable. I have a feeling that the MCBA, the Minority Cannabis Business Association, for some reason in the process, there's been waived. That's the only reason I can see why MPP and them, they wouldn't plug in. But NORML, not an organization that you should be giving money to, not an organization that has been effective when it comes to drug policy. Now, High Times, NORML, hand in hand with being able to spread cultural awareness and having a name out there. Yes, offering advice in some situations and offering a lead into legal help, etc. A placeholder, a decent placeholder at times. Fantastic information has come out of it. They have brought studies and awareness to the table and been effective to a certain point. But in helping organize, being completely plugged in, understanding how laws are being implemented and what should be implemented. The things I was talking about with MPP, about bending at the knees a little bit too much, or completely understanding how legalization was going to be implemented in any given state, completely lost on that and not plugged in. And the guidance that you would look from, not there, period. End of story. It's the reason why me and NORML have a divide between us, period. I've never been quiet about that. It's never been something to where somebody has pissed me off and we didn't want to work with them in that way, because they pissed me off long before all this shiz, before we became cut off from NORML and shoved out. And we still worked hand in hand with people there. But taking advantage of the culture and taking advantage of money that's given to groups and organizations, NORML one of them, number one. It's not surprising that they would be included in this. So, let's see here. And then NCIA is also questionably non-effective at a national level also, and could arguably say some of the same things that you say for NORML on effectiveness that you can for NCIA on outreach and getting business done and taking care of things there. So I've seen both those very closely, both those groups very closely. NCIA, I got done with NCIA when they also jumped it. You could pretty much cut my support off when you start to jump on a bandwagon of bad cannabis policy and getting on the ride with the drug warriors, limitations, serving sizes, etc. Recreational 100 milligrams you can only buy, and then 10. Huge arguments. The thing is, NCIA and a lot of these groups are at the national level and not connected in with people at the local. They're out of touch. You cannot get to them and discuss things with them, and they are not outreaching and sitting down and discussing with you. And the problem with NORML became they were not listening to people, their organizations in states and individual chapters. So, and the other big ones, that's really the big thing, is they just become disconnected at a certain point, and there's a clique and a group that they maybe stay plugged into, and we avoided that in Colorado for a long time. Now it's just pretty much everywhere. So I feel it's important. If we had 50 people in here listening, it would be even more important and sound even more better if I was ranting on this for the past 5-10 minutes. But I feel it's important for awareness. It's just like if you go to donate to the American Red Cross or Susan G. Komen or whatever, looking to see how much of that money is wasted, what the effectiveness of your donation and your time with this organization is. So, while USCC which is the United States Cannabis Council, what we're talking about overall here, stressed in its announcement and on its website that legalization and social equity will be its principal goals. The fact that these important players are missing from the roster has left some skeptical about the notion that it will provide uniformity on how advocates address the issues. But see, I think if you're plugged in and you're looking at these organizations, okay, MPP running on their own, somewhat concerning, but I trust them. They got shit done. They are effective. They have multiple states and multiple people who have been in those states that have passed legalization successfully. Nobody else can say that. None of these other organizations can say that. They can try to, but they cannot say that. So here's some, who's this? Tahid Chappelle. Agreed. Look at the makeup of this federal. I do think that there should be minority. There should be a minority cannabis business association that is representing the minorities. That should be in there. That's maybe something falling short. And I would ask that MPP, maybe we should call him and talk with him, ask this specific question. What is happening on the social equity side? The things that Minority Cannabis Business Association would be concerned about, what steps are being taken with that? And who's giving feedback and information to the senators, like Senator Cory Booker, who's going to be hopefully introducing comprehensive cannabis legislation. You know, who exactly is plugged into that organization-wise? And we're slowly finding that out. This is the only one that's concerning for me, though. Some have also questioned whether there's a need to bring another coalition into the fold, especially one that is largely represented by existing private interests, as congressional leaders move to enact a federal marijuana policy change. The thing is, this, from the Marijuana Policy Project side, what I would hope, and I'm maybe putting words in MPP's mouth, and where this comes to help, you have Senator Cory Booker and this coalition that is putting together what is supposed to be comprehensive cannabis reform. In order to get there, we need to have a situation where we're not reinventing the wheel and putting in laws and rules, regulation that cause us to do that, and then cause the system to fail before it even starts. It's the number one thing that has to happen before we move further. We can have the sentencing, that be separate. Social equity, that be separate. On the sentencing side of things, obviously social equity with the licensing and the regulations and all that we're talking about with this. But there's separate things that can move forward, and they will move forward. A lot easier than the regulated side of sales and taxes will move forward. And it will be very easily, just we see as South Dakota, Washington, Oregon, how things happen there, for that, everything else to kind of slide under and move forward and appease enough people so that what the ultimate goal, the larger picture of sales and full comprehensive reform doesn't get fully implemented, at least right away. And as it does, it gets chipped away and chipped away and chipped away, and the awesomeness of it and the good rules and more limitations added in, or a rule for this or a rule for that. And then you have to go back in and take those out because the court says, nope, that's not good. Can't have that. Violates this. And at the same time, all these rules that are about to come into play affecting each state that has already successfully implemented cannabis legalization and sales, coming in and possibly affecting what we have done. So it is important. It is important that we get as many people as possible that have the best interest and success track record that we can to help write these bills. So I would hope MPP, working with this organization, is plugging in with Senator Cory Booker and his group and is actually saying, hey, look, this is what we've done in other states. This is how we're not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm telling you, this is how we got to do it. Let's do it this way. And hopefully gaining that trust of those representatives. I don't trust NORML to do that. I don't trust NCIA to do that and not cut us off at the knees. I trust MPP. It would surprise me that if MPP were to push regulation and rules that would do anything to undercut what we have done here in Colorado specifically, which is the shining example of cannabis reform and the shining example of sales. Everything we're talking about, Colorado is that shining example. We've done it for so long. We've been successful at it during that time. So it's just a matter of timing. Oregon and Washington had a chance to be this too. California had that chance. We'll all drop the ball. Putting everything into perspective of what we've done here in Colorado, and I'd be saying this if I was in another state that's done it well. Putting things into perspective of what we've done here in Colorado has been highly successful, and also something that can be plugged into every other state. It's not something that is independent and what's the word I'm looking for? Unique is the word. It's not something unique to our state. It is not. All right. The only thing unique to other states is the will and moral capabilities of representatives to implement laws that are effective and work. So with that long-winded blah, 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 I trust the people that I've worked with and seen succeed and not want to cut ourselves off at the knees, move forward. And this has been the group. Where was I at? Oh yeah, I highlighted where I was at. We've seen many organizations come and go over the years, and the various efforts they've made to rebrand or organize themselves. And just as in those past cases, we wish the USCC the best. You know, I know Aaron Smith personally. This is Aaron. This is such an underhanded attempt to take a shot at MPP when they have succeeded in places that you have not, Aaron. I've told you this before. We need like 1,000 people, 2,000 people to clip it and then send it to Aaron, whatever. Yeah. Listen, we don't flame them that much. We've seen many organizations come and go over the years, the various efforts they've made to rebrand or reorganize themselves, just as in those past cases. We wish the USCC that. I mean, it says nothing. It's just hurt feelings. And I wouldn't say the things that I'm saying right now if I were confident that these organizations were able to do what they say they can do. They've been around for long enough, just as what Aaron's saying right here. He should turn that mirror onto his own organization, all right? There's great people that work there, okay? But the actual education and leadership and direction and effectiveness, that's what we're talking about here. And no one tops MPP. There's not a single organization out there that tops MPP's success and knowledge and people that have been involved, their success, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've already said that. Calm down, JD. We were approached about joining, but as the largest and broadest trade association in the country, we feel it necessary to focus on representing our membership and remain independent and nimble, he said. Wait, so he was asked to be in it? Or are we talking about this guy right here? Independent and nimble. We already collaborate closely with organizations behind the USCC, and we'll definitely be working with this coalition in the future. There's too much history in some of these organizations too. I can guarantee that some of it, just like this shiz I'm talking to you about right now, that there's history and there's a little bit of whatever buried in that. It's not just here, okay? It's there too. MPP has proven that they're not going to be a part of that is another reason too, that they have. If they forearm shove you out of the way, it is for a reason. Probably. You know, I know what it feels like to have that happen. You know, you just gotta, you gotta swallow and come to grips that maybe that's what's happened. You know, maybe your peers are shoving you out. Like we talked about here in Denver, quality and all the awesomeness that came to be. It wasn't because we didn't have, it was because, I was gonna try to be a smart ass there and it's not gonna come out. It was because we held a standard We had a group of people that was like, nope, that's not going to work. And you got shoved out. You're generally not successful unless you had deep pockets. NCIA, deep pockets. And I'm not saying anything bad about people that work there. A few people I know very well. But it's just the truth. It's not hard. It's the hard truth to swallow. But to do the same sometimes. Time for them to do the same. I don't think NCIA should exist. I don't think normal should exist. I think it's a waste of money and a waste of efforts, and also a lot of pushes that have cut us off at the knees, you know, regulation-wise. All right, shut up, move on. Get over this story. I'm gonna use the restroom. Maybe I'll use that as a draw away. I feel good. I feel good when we have a legitimate story in front of us that we can legitimately say, hey, this is the reason why you're not involved in it. Okay? Can't say that all the time. Hawkins told Marijuana Moment that he understands that there will be reasons why organizations may or may not join. For example, they may feel that their voices are better served being independent.
They don't mesh together. That's what they're saying. They don't make good bed folks.
Having 4 or 5 voices advocating for reform independently doesn't necessarily undercut the mission, he said. What was undercutting was having 20 to 25 voices all putting out different messages. What it sounds like to me is, I mean, we're still dealt with that up until now. And then now what we're dealing with is, it's like Black Friday at Walmart. And everybody that wants to get there and wants to, you know, be the first, thinks they're the best, is right at that door, all right? And jockeying for position, slamming others out of the way, and holding the baton high, like, I'm first. Then when the doors open, they want to be that first through the door. They want to have the most powerful coalition, the most powerful people behind them. And it makes sense. That's how shit works. And a lot of these organizations probably do see the power that also comes with what is happening right now, and where some of these leaders could be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, however far ahead. You know, we have friends here in Colorado, for example, Ian Sieb, number one example. Talk about people that went from, you know, that went from the ground level all the way up. We've mentioned Dredd, you know. We've mentioned Will, a few other people, but we also have a friend and the homie that was part of this group of people at the very beginning, ran a store, helped learn and guide regulation on a responsible to our culture path. Ian Sieb, now the director of cannabis for Colorado. The man Governor Polis put in charge of cannabis. These groups understand where they could be by getting in a position of leadership and being the first. Kind of exciting to watch. Hopefully they don't screw it up, though. I wouldn't be as excited if it were a different story about normal, but, you know, I don't think that they wouldn't be able to get here. NCIA would have done this if they had the ability to do this, all right? So it's now put up or shut up time, I guess, when it comes down to it. You should invite Aaron on. Yeah, I don't think he'd come on the show though. What has NCIA done for me? I'm pretty sure he wouldn't come on. We have Bike interview him. That's what we'll do. We'll have 428 GTO. That's what we'll do. We'll have him interview Aaron Smith. I love you, Aaron. I'm sorry. All right. I'm just speaking the truth on a personal level, which nothing but the best. Asked about the decision not to join the new coalition, VPA policy coordinator Queen Adesai. This is why I shouldn't be able to read names. It should be against the law for JDR to read names. Said her group's focus remains on advancing comprehensive marijuana reform grounded in justice reform and equity this Congress, alongside our dedicated partners within the Marijuana Justice Coalition and other allies who share our commitment to ending federal criminalization of marijuana, addressing its collateral harms, and ensuring that the legal marketplace is inclusive of those negatively affected by prohibition. Other groups that were invited to be members of the coalition but didn't accept similarly said they still plan to work with USCC and its members in some capacity. So here's the thing: is it sounded like at the beginning that these people were not invited, but they were. Maybe they're like invited and told, no, you're not. I mean, this is just so we can show, you know. Normal Executive Director Eric Altieri told Marijuana Moment that we welcome the support from any group willing to work to bring an end to our failed prohibition to marijuana. But it is important for the Normal's mission to remain independent from industry and solely focused on representation. Here's the thing with this. Adam, I love you. Here's the thing. This is an Adam Dunn move, is what they want to have happen. Is like kind of like pull in and say, hey, I want this done and get it done. And then it gets done by the power and coalition of the magic of the hoodlum. I mean, I'm not saying Hoodlab and Adam hasn't got shit done. Gotten more done than normal, in my opinion. But that's what kind of normals do it right here. They, it's like time to put up or shut up. They were just like, nah. We just kind of enjoy being the pillar, the lighthouse on the side of the beach that sits back and enjoys in our, lounge chair, smoking the big old doobie. We'll leave the light on, but, if you're going to ask us to actually do anything, I mean, maybe we could find a person that might be able to do that for you, but, is this going to involve actually being responsible for something? Nah. I'm talking normal specifically here, not done necessarily. But the done deal does get done that way. He's not even going to know I said that later this week. You can't tell him I said that, everybody, okay? And I only said that because I know when he comes on, I'm going to get more shit from him than he's going to get from me, probably. So, they said they were invited. No drama, just a matter of current MCBA priorities. ASA Executive Director Debbie Chirgari told Marijuana Moment that the group supports a coordinated federal approach to medical cannabis and social equity, but recently formed its own policy advisory committee. I'm telling you right now that none of these groups, Normal may be excluded, because Normal is just going to sit back and chill, as they always do. But all these other groups, all trying to fight for first, and they don't want to share it. Or they have different views of how the people in charge that are talking to the representatives and are actually there, the head of the spear, those talking points don't match up. So it could be a number of things. Still, ASA continue, blah, blah, blah. Despite some initial skepticism among certain advocates, USCC says it intends to make comprehensive marijuana reform a priority. USCC has come together to meet this moment, and to meet it, we understand that we will need unity. What USCC represents is a broad coalition that brings together some of the top companies in the industry, as well as several advocacy organizations, as well as several trade groups, as well as, all to have one unified voice going forward with the primary goal to see the end of federal prohibition and to ensure that there's social equity provisions in place. Representative Blumenauer, a leading champion of congressional cannabis reform, voiced his support for USCC and said he's seen firsthand that our most successful cannabis wins have been secured by a team. I'm pretty sure he meant this team too. So, like, it's almost impossible not to look at this USCC group and just MPP in particular and say that they don't have a positive track record. That's why I'm glad to see this first-of-a-kind alliance. We have a unique opportunity in the 117th Congress. This also tells me that they'll be working together with Senator Cory Booker and the group that's going to be the three in charge. Why can I not remember the other two? Anyway, the three that are going to be presenting the bill, and then there'll be a wide coalition of support of representatives behind them too, co-sponsoring. 117 cons. Look forward to welcoming the United States Cannabis Council to D.C. Christian Cederberg hey, we're familiar with these guys too. I was having a conversation with Adam about Brian Vicente last week too. It's funny. Christian Cedarberg, USCC's acting board chairman and partner at the cannabis firm Vicente Cedarberg, said, cannabis industry has mobilized to make our message clear. We must deschedule and legalize cannabis. It is critical that it's done the right way. So Brian Vicente Cedarberg, a couple of the lawyers that also helped write cannabis laws here in Colorado. There was like 5-10 lawyers at the very beginning, 5 core lawyers that helped write everything. And then Vicente Cedarberg and company helped organize, along with the grassroots community and other lawyers, positive to the culture and positive to the business, effective laws and rules that we implemented here. Not everything went as great as it was supposed to be, but it went pretty damn well. After so many years working towards meaningful reform, it's inspiring to see the diverse group of partners who have formed this collective voice, and together we are hopeful that true, meaningful federal cannabis reform is within reach. And I'll tell you, it's not like these guys are like, oh, they're my favorites. They're super great people that I came up with, and, you know, they're part of our clique. That may be a little bit true, but we've also had fallings out with, you could probably list everybody we know, and by we, I mean me, in the USCC and MPP, and at some point, there's history there of like, really, probably on my side, but on good terms though. So I haven't been completely on their side all the time. Anyway, this article continues on pretty much to say the same things that we've said before and argued with, and then just gives feedback from the other representatives. I'm going to pee my pants in a second, so I will be right back. Thanks for hanging out with us. It is the JDR.
Listening to the John Doe Radio Show live.
You heard the robot. It's live. Thank you for hanging out with us here on the JDR. We've got cannabis news, entertainment, really just cannabis news right now.
We get to the entertainment eventually.
I mean, do I not entertain? I think I do, on some level.
If anything,
it's entertaining. But again, thank you for hanging out with us. If you have not yet done so, please make sure to follow us here at the JDR. You just click that follow button, and then, yeah, you can find out when we go live, or you can follow our Twitter, which is below. Just click that link. It says Twitter. We also have a Discord link down there, too, if you would like to ask me any questions, clarify anything further, whatever. Holler at me there. And then also, big thanks to the company, the people that make this possible. You, obviously. And then Get Seeds right here. Make sure you guys check out Get Seeds right here for your seed needs. Confident. They come correct. And since I have known the man, he has always been a gentleman of upstanding character and making sure that your shiz is taken care of. Okay? If anything, you're going to get honest, accurate, good quality seed shiz. Okay? Yeah, good shiz. I just picked up an article earlier today that talked about how that was how it was a shot in the dark to find good quality seeds and seeds that are supposed to be what they are and not something else, etc., etc., etc. You know what I'm saying. So obviously something that becomes more and more of an issue as more and more states start to legalize and do all that goodness. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you do. Connecticut Governor's Marijuana Task Force issues social equity recommendation for legalization. What else did we get to here? South Dakota Coalition. Oh yeah, and the GOP Congressman. Let's do this one. GOP Congressman recently acknowledged that the state-level marijuana legalization movement is curbing illicit trafficking of cannabis from other countries as more people have access to legal, regulated markets. Representative Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin, who also just presented something for legalization medical purposes. Not him in particular, but Wisconsin presented medical marijuana. That might be coming to Wisconsin. This guy, the Representative Grothman, that's who we're talking about now, made the remarks on the House floor last week as he was defending funding for a wall along the southern border. Oh, weird. He said that the country will be losing money if work to expand the wall is suspended, which he said would result in more drugs coming across the southern border. But not necessarily cannabis. Not surprising, as marijuana becomes more legal in the United States, more of the drugs that cross the southern border are fentanyl, meth, heroin, resulting in more deaths all around the country. Another reason why we should be taking our southern borders seriously. This also talks about, okay, we've starting to remove the blocks of the drug war and the ineffectiveness that it is. And then that might make other people uneasy in ways that they could argue, look, we shouldn't be doing this. Even though it's kind of effective, we shouldn't be doing this. Because you see this? It's all going to come crashing down. Stop. Stop. The heroin is going to fall on my head, okay? You know, that kind of scared thinking of the way that we've done things for a long time now. But it just goes to show that, number one, importation of cannabis becoming less because we've got a legalized system, we've got a controlled system. Can't equal cannabis to other drugs, but at the same time, maybe looking at some of these things as far as, you know, cutting them off, not being the most effective, not the most effective way of means in what you're trying to do. Like, how, if you can understand this, that legalization is helping the spread of drugs from across the border, it's impossible for me to trust you that you don't understand the rest of this process. You do. The only thing is, you're trying to keep your constituents happy, and you're trying to keep your feet where they've been for so long, and save face at the same time. You can't do that. You're going to be fine. I'm telling you right now, you will be fine if you start to say the drug war has been a failure. We need to start looking at other means and other ways to operate. Maybe there's a couple places that wouldn't really work out necessarily, but I'm telling you right now, there's almost every single representative in every single part of the United States that would be able to be successful with that to an extent. And the people would probably trust you, and you would be more successful in areas you never thought you could be, with constituents you never thought would follow you, by just giving up that caveat, by just saying the drug war has been a failure. We got to try something different. Doesn't surprise me, though, from a dude that's saying we need to add a huge wall on the border. These are the people you just got to get out of office when it comes down to it. All right, and then they're replaced with people that understand this is a failure and understand legalization, etc., social equity on all levels is something very important. It's something that we're going to be moving towards. It is a reality that change needs to happen, and a reality that we need to put people in position that are going to make these changes. Get the others out. In Grotham's home state of Wisconsin, Governor Terry Evers announced this week, as we mentioned before, he will include provisions to legalize marijuana in his biennial budget proposal. Oh, I said it was medical marijuana. This is legalization. It should be noted the majority of illicit drugs that are seized at the border come through lawful ports of entry, not carried across unsecured terrain. But in any case, it's true that demand for cannabis trafficked illegally across the border has declined in the area of legalization. The Congressional Research Service said in a report last year that trend will continue. And yes, it is very important to note that the majority of drugs are coming through legal ports. Okay, because I mean, do you really think somebody is driving a ship or a train? Maybe a train, but that's included in the legal ports of entry. Building train tracks, building a highway that can have convoys that will ship these drugs. When we're talking about the catapults, or we're talking about the coyotes, or the people that are walking across the desert with a couple bales of cannabis on their back, that shit don't mean nothing. That's not even a pinprick of the drugs that are coming into the United States. It is literally a non-starter, non-effective argument to make if you look at the numbers. There's not enough people carrying illegal drugs on their backs across the border. It's just not, it doesn't happen that way. So, you have these ships, shipping containers, trains, shipping trucks, all through ports of entry that are bringing these larger loads than what individuals can carry across the border. It's a simple fact. So, the whole wall idea is just some bullshit, trying to be racist and bigoted against, our people in Mexico, people at the southern border. It's silly. The frustrating part is, though, if we try to work with Mexico on effective levels, with business involved and actual trade, and we got to figure out what we're doing here first, okay? And we have to solidify rules and standards here first. Because the thing is, we can't rely on Mexico business-wise. Oh, God. And what am I saying? We have to eventually, at some point, be able to rely on Mexico business-wise to work with us, and regulation-wise to work with us to be able to make effective laws and rules. If we're not going to legalize all drugs, and we're not going to take that road, probably not going to happen for a very long time, if ever, here in the United States. But combined regulation and rules for when everything does become decriminalized, because we will get there for a decrim situation, there's got to be some standard, and there's got to be some talk back and forth between Mexico and us, specifically for regulation purposes. We can do better with working together with them. We just have to change our laws. And then 2, on the cannabis side of the business side of things, tapping into other places is not a horrible idea. It's going to happen. You know, there are places, Colombia, for example, where grows are starting up. This is not even mentioning hemp. Hemp will be another thing that on a separate table, not even talking recreational style things, but talking about textiles and the progress of that hemp and the things that can be created from that. Cooperation and communication outside the United States is a huge thing that we have to do. So transferring products, hemp seeds, the actual growing of plants and researching, breeding hemp plants, etc. All this stuff is all got to fall in line eventually. And it's happening slowly in some places. But the problem is Mexico kind of has this upside down, non-functional at times in some areas, forms of government. And if we're going to do what we're going to do, we have to protect that first. Eventually it would be nice. But the horror stories I can see that we can get there. We can get there with working with Mexico and tying our laws together. All right. And it'll do away with a lot of this conversation and a lot of this talk. Because the drug war part of this is bullshit. It's just an excuse for you to be an asshole. Man, I think about what I said sometimes. I take a deep breath after I get done saying it. I'm like, did that? There was like a quarter of what my brain was trying to get across that actually came across, and now you just sound like an idiot. That's okay. No harm, no foul. When I try to actually explain the whole thing, we get lost on what we were talking about and can't find our way back. We've done all right today. I think it's been a decent show. Researchers said that authorities are projecting a continued decline in U.S. demand for Mexican marijuana because drugs other than marijuana will likely predominate, and that's the case due to legalized cannabis or medical cannabis in several U.S. states and Canada, reducing its value as part of Mexican trafficking organizations' portfolio. The head of the labor union that represents U.S. Border Patrol agents also said last year that states that legalize marijuana are disrupting cartel activity. And I also don't believe that legalizing cannabis is going to cause an increase in other drugs coming into the United States and other drugs coming into these legal ports and means. Those two don't go together. They're not tied hand in hand. Federal data on Border Patrol drug seizures seems to substantiate the idea that cannabis legalization at the state level has reduced demand for the product from the illicit market, according to a 2018 report from the Cato Institute. These substantial declines are attributable to state-level cannabis reform efforts, which significantly undercut marijuana smuggling. Also, a 2020 report from the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that federal prosecutions for marijuana trafficking declined again in 2019. It showed that as more states have moved towards legalizing cannabis, federal marijuana traffic cases have consistently decreased since 2012. An end-of-the-year report from Supreme Court Justice John Roberts in 2019 similarly showed that federal marijuana prosecutions are declining as more states legalize. All this says is that everything that's happening is working. An informal task force formed by Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont has issued... I always wondered what it would be like to be named Ned. Ned. Pretty much the most basic of basic. I mean, Tim's pretty basic. That's kind of why I've thought about it before. Like, what other basic bitch names can we get that would be funny? Ned's one of them. Ned has issued a series of recommendations on how to legalize marijuana with an eye towards social justice for communities most harmed by prohibition. The group, which was comprised of about 20 lawmakers, advocates, and community leaders, tackled two main sets of issues, those related to licensing and regulations, as well as community reinvestment. It was formed by the administration on a largely ad hoc basis in December and has stayed relatively under the radar in weeks since. I think the overreaching theme in the recommendations is the governor's proposal. In the governor's proposal, needs to have strong equity provisions on the licensing side and on the back end, specifically a significant portion of the revenue going towards communities hard hit by the war on drugs. See, this is the first thing that representatives are talking about when it comes to reform. I mean, it's interesting. It is a change kind of from the way that things have been before. It was not the number one thing that people talked about. There was I think now that we've got everything in order and they're comfortable with it, we can have the regulated side of things going. You know, they feel more comfortable with being able to attack the sentencing side because they know the sky's not going to fall on the regulation side. And at the same time, they change sentencing and, oh my God, we screwed up. Like, everybody's taking advantage of the system. In the meantime, we made all these rules lighter. There was recognition among task force members that there was a lack of diversity and inclusion in the current medical market. He said, without those two things, the governor's adult use legalization bill will have a really hard time gaining traction from progressive legislators, urban legislators, and legislators of color, all which make up a large chunk of the Democratic majorities in both chambers in Connecticut. Here are some key recommendations that came out of the task force in Connecticut. Take a drink. Good old water. Social equity licenses should go to businesses that have at least 67% ownership by individuals who meet at least two criteria. 1, those arrested over a cannabis-related offense. Number 2, those with an immediate family member who has been arrested over marijuana. That's pretty broad-reaching right there, actually. All-inclusive, those with an annual income of lower than 150% of the median wage, or those from communities most harmed by prohibition as dictated by an equity study. First 2 of those on there, very, very, very interesting. Especially number 2. Those with an immediate family member who have been arrested over marijuana. There's a lot of bonus that goes in with that. A lot of scenarios that could lead to someone who maybe doesn't have a family member there anymore that was prosecuted for cannabis, and then the family be able to gain from this situation. A capital fund for zero-interest loans should be established and made available for equity operators. Equity licenses should match traditional licenses in the state at each part of the supply chain. If medical cannabis dispensaries are prioritized for adult use licenses, equity applicants should also get licensing priority for micro-cultivator, delivery, and transportation businesses. Micro-cultivator. Stop reinventing the wheel. Each marijuana company must implement policies that encourage diversity in employment and contracting and other professional opportunities. Micro-cultivator. Stupid. Fucking. Just do away with that, okay? These recommendations come as the governor is circulating a draft bill to legalize marijuana. Not the actual what it is, but the name of it. Circulating a draft bill to legalize marijuana, soliciting feedback from state agencies as he prepares a push to enact the policy change this year. We should put together in every state what the license is called. Like the transportation license or the grow license. There's some weird names for licensing at the state level. Lamont reiterated his support for legalizing marijuana during the annual State of the State address last month and said that he would be working with legislators to advance the reform this session. Under the governor's draft proposal, wholesale marijuana flower would be taxed at $1.25 per gram, while trimmed plants would be subject to a 50-cent tax per gram. The state's $6.35 sales tax would also be imposed on retail cannabis purchases, as well as 3% surcharge, with revenue partly going to local jurisdictions. Wholesale marijuana flower, trimmed plants. Too many taxes in this goddamn country. It also provides for automatic expungements for people with prior low-level marijuana possession convictions from October 1st, 2015 or earlier. For those convicted after the date, they will be able to petition the court for relief. Whatever the decriminalized law for possession was up until a felony, that's what that rule is going to cover. Probably an ounce or lower. possession of an ounce or lower, and then anything that's below that. I think that's basically where we've reached with that set of laws and expungements. We haven't got to the felony parts yet. Only in California, where you can possibly have you can petition the court and have your felony reclassified if it's no longer a felony. But that's, I think, the only state we've gotten that far with on that side of things. Also provides for, we just read that, other provisions of the draft bill would restrict marketing to prevent appealing to youth, increasing law enforcement resources for drug recognition experts to identify impaired driving, and incorporating cannabis smoking and vaping to the state's indoor clean air laws. We've been there before. The vaping throws a huge wrench into social use. That's another big problem why social use didn't take off here as much as it did. Probably not the main issue, but it's definitely an issue. Especially in places where like the Clean Indoor Act is a pretty big deal. And smaller towns and communities that really enforce that type of thing have strict rules when it comes to the vape. I think there's an exception for vaping for cannabis. At the state level, I'm going to have to read the law again. My name Joe. Hello, Joe. 428 GTO, by the way, we did get you taken care of if you're still here. I don't know if you're still here or not, so be on the lookout for that. You won the giveaway from Get Seeds right here. Congratulations, my friend. Well deserved since you've been the homies. We've been chilling here almost every day. Did we lose the bed? I think we did. We lost them all. I did like the bed lineup a little bit better today than I did yesterday. So we got to add some more in here, and then we'll be good. All right, let's continue on with this. I think I did a good job today of not looking at the amount of people that are here, too, because I know it's no one. But go on. As is, we're recording, and 1 million people were going to listen. So in that way, we have been successful. Yesterday, I let that shit derail me, and normal, everyday life things that were coming into play. I feel like I better train all of a sudden in the middle of yesterday's show. Focus and anxiety and depression, but we come here to relax and get away from that. So today's been a bonus on that in the, hour and a half we've been going with it. Good. I'm just bummed I had a doctor's appointment. Couldn't start at 10. Now 6 o'clock. Holy shit. The legislature has considered legalization proposals on several occasions in recent years in Connecticut, including a bill that Democrats introduced last year on the governor's behalf. But while those stalled, there's increased optimism that 2021 is the year for reform. House Speaker Matt Ritter said in November that legalization in the state is inevitable. Well, that's a no-brainer, Mr. Ritter, because it's inevitable everywhere. He added later that month that I think it's got a 50-50 chance of passing. But he said 2021. It's inevitable, but in 2021, a 50-50 chance. Well, it didn't happen. I think you should have a vote regardless. Should that effort fail, Ritter said that he will move to put a constitutional question on the state's 2022 ballot that would leave the matter to voters. A poll released... Wait, it is 2021. It was 2020 last year, so yes, he's 50-50 chance. I thought he was talking about last session. Yes, 50-50 chance of passing. Yeah, maybe. A poll released last year found that nearly 2/3 of voters either strongly or somewhat support recreational legalization. We're beyond the polls, people. We don't give a shit about the polls anymore. We know the polls are going to be 60, 70, 80% pro-legalization. That's not what we care about. We care about having lawmakers in a position to represent these polls and represent the people, their constituents, to form progressive, comprehensive, and effective cannabis reform laws. Period. Don't give a shit about these goddamn polls anymore. Since when has a poll been accurate recently anyway? Isn't that how we end up with Trump? Certain lawmakers have said they already made it clear they will not support legalization unless it is adequately supporting of social equity and reinvests in communities most impacted by the war on drugs. Senator Douglas McCrory, co-chair of the Education Committee, said in a recent interview that Frosty the Snowman, oh God, where are we going with this? Oh, Jesus.
Frosty the Snowman would have had a better chance of passing summer school in hell than any piece of legislation in Connecticut if it doesn't deal with equity, economics, and the communities that have been targeted and devastated by this fake war on drugs.
That's a pretty good Disney voice, right? Old school Disney voice. Can I do it again, though? It's like a different voice every time when I make a voice. Never the same. Hey. JDR, you never get the same, eh? Governor has compared the need for regional coordination on marijuana policy to the coronavirus response, stating that officials have got to think regionally when it comes to how to deal with the pandemic. I think we have to think regionally when it comes to marijuana as well. How I read that. I think we have to think regionally when it comes to marijuana as well. He also said that legalization in Connecticut could potentially reduce the spread of COVID-19 by limiting out-of-state trips to purchase legal cannabis in neighboring states such as Massachusetts and New Jersey. Let's be honest here, though, okay? Let's be completely honest. You're not going to have a system of retail in place before COVID is over, all right? That's just not going to happen, all right? And maybe I'm thinking positively towards COVID, and yes, I am. Maybe another year plus. You ain't gonna have it though. It's like very little effect for that side of things. Okay, let's keep that argument on the side. If it's effective, which it probably is right now, because these legislators are idiots, it is probably an effective argument right now because right now the shiny object is COVID and a very big shiny object for rightful reasons. But that doesn't mean that's going to help in this. If you can get things done in that sense, the taxes that you're going to take in are going to help a little bit more than pulling people from out of state into your state to buy cannabis, okay? Let's just be real. And then we have the definition of equity applicants. How you say applicant? Ratio of equity licenses, establishing capital fund. This is a good one too. A capital fund is zero interest loans for certified equity operators. Being able to tap into a zero equity fund and get money this way, very, very, very big thing. There are people that I've talked to that when it comes down to discussions of equity and how much money they put into this and the success afterwards and the ability to pay things back, they might have taken more money up front. You know, happy they did it by themselves at the beginning, but now, you know, looking back on things, could have possibly taken things on. Let me see if everything sounds all right. We just dumped everybody. 1, 2, check. But now, you know, looking back on things, could have possibly taken things. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Now good. Just got nobody watching. See? Stay away from that. This is when we shout out the YouTube. Idaho medical cannabis marijuana activists. That basically, we'll follow up on Connecticut. Just like this guy said, 50-50 chance. I also think Connecticut's a little bit of a far shot right now. Idaho marijuana activists have been cleared to begin signature gathering for a 2022 ballot initiative to legalize medical cannabis in the state. Kind Idaho, the campaign behind the measure, announced on Monday that it had received the official petition from the Secretary of State's office. Maybe people don't... See, I did go kind of like a little bit heavy on the JDR funny stupidness there, and we lost everybody. Maybe people just want the dry news read. Is that it? Just dry? Just read the news? Give very limited emotional input? Analysis, and then go from there? Is that what we have to do? I hope not. That would suck. I've done that before. I've done that in regular broadcast radio. Seriousness is a killer. But if it's what we got to do to make money, that's what we got to do. But this development also comes amid legislative complications. Whatever, GTO. legislative complications, with lawmakers advancing a resolution to change the state constitution in a way that would prevent Idaho from enacting legalization through this or separate proposed recreational marijuana measure that activists also want to put on the midterm ballot. Another wrinkle in activist plans concerns a medical cannabis bill that was recently introduced in a House committee. The legislation, sponsored by bipartisan duo of representatives, is expected to be seriously restricted, and its passage could undermine the ballot campaign, giving voters the impression that the state already has an effective cannabis program for patients. Now, Idaho's a mess, man. If the Idaho initiative that would ban anything like this happens, I just get out of Idaho. Just leave the hoe. That's what you got to do. Many, many, many people have been told that before, and they don't do it. They're emotionally attached, and they just don't do it. You just got to do it. You got to do it. Got to get somewhere that makes you feel comfortable. Got to get somewhere where you're accepted, unless you're willing to take on that fight. Okay? That fight can be difficult at times. That fight can be a struggle, as I'm sure y'all are aware there in Idaho. You know, you've been there. You understand what is happening right now. All right? It is the reason why nobody just goes to Idaho to do cannabis reform from another state to say, hey, I think I'm going to take this effectiveness that I had here and then go to Idaho and be effective there. No. We're talking about a grassroots situation here. It's got to change from the bottom on up of people that are invested in Idaho. But the thing is, if you pass a law that says that you can't do this and puts up a brick wall banning the change of cannabis legalization from happening, yeah, you got to get on your truck and get out. It's over. I wish I was like a big streamer and more than a 3-viewer Andy and could get into the GTA RP. That would be fun. That would be hella fun. In any case, Idaho is moving ahead, kind Idaho, and feels that it has the time necessary to gather enough valid signatures to make the ballot next year. Activists attempted to get an identical version of the initiative on the 2020 ballot, but they suspended the campaign amid complications resulting from the Rona, and were not able to get approval for electronic petitioning. They said would have allowed them to qualify. Man, I feel really bad for people that... See, here's the thing. How laws get changed and those petitioners and the people that are plugged in on that level, even people that are paid to do this stuff and aren't necessarily, maybe they're just doing it to get paid in places that allow that to happen. Those are some of the most important people that you can look at when it comes, some of the most valuable, beyond valuable people in change and in the process, because without those people, we already have a situation where the general public has a hard time of being involved and feels disenfranchised and is separated from that process in one way or another. If now we have a situation to where it makes it even more difficult for the people that care, largely care, and the ones who get up off their butts and go do something about it, even if it's just a petition, show up at city council meetings, at the state legislative hearings. Luckily here in Colorado, we allow a lot of public input for those type of things, and you have access to that. But then the other major way, and the other people that have their hearts and their soul in passing a law, are the people that are collecting the signatures. So making that easy for them in a lawful manner, that needs to happen, because that not happening, as was the case for this group, and it, even if it wasn't for cannabis, even if it was for something I didn't agree with, the blow that you get of having something like this be out of your control, and then the other means, a valid means of being able to get these signatures and get things done, is cut off from you. It's such a crushing. Politicians can deal with this type of shit. They're built for it. You get into politics either knowing this or you're very quickly shoved out and jaded. This is just how the way it works. Politicians are built for this, but the everyday you and me people that have their heart and their souls into something, into changing a law, that are out there in the snow, in the rain, in the 100-degree weather, collecting these signatures. We want to take care of those people. We want to make their jobs within lawful means as easy as possible, because that's our freedom right there. That is our system. That is our process. Not all of it, but the absolute control of the people and the people's will. It's the closest that it's one of the closest means that we can get to that anymore. So we can't get away with we cannot get away with doing away with the signature gatherers and these people that are important at the very beginning. The voter initiatives are the most important initiatives that come across. Okay, and I feel sorry for states that don't have the easy ability for voter initiatives to be put forward, and just relying on legislators and lawmakers you elect to come up with the laws and put those forward. It feels like the people don't have the say they should in those situations. And I can imagine feel even more disenfranchised than, say, places here in Colorado, where it's relatively easy to have a voter say and to have a voter initiative put forward that ends up in the Colorado Constitution. And then luckily on top of that, we have voters that have been smart and not gone with some of the more disgusting or non-palatable things that have been presented on that way. So, campaign now has until May 2022 in Idaho to collect about 65,000 valid signatures to make the ballot this time around. Under the proposal, qualifying patients would be able to purchase and possess up to 4 ounces of marijuana. Those with hardship designation could also cultivate up to 6 plants. The initiative lists 12 conditions that would make a patient eligible for medical cannabis, but it also extends to any terminal disease or severe chronic illness. Chronic pain is also included in that. Chronic illness, I assume, should be. Chronic illness, chronic pain, all the same thing. State health department would be able to add additional conditions as they see fit, as it is in Colorado and other states, but very slow to get this done, even with proof that it can be done. PTSD, I think, was added recently in Colorado, or is we still fighting that? I think we might still be fighting for that PTSD to be added to that. I'm a little bit unplugged from that part of it, the medical side. But these things go very slow. You have a lot of petitions that are sent. A lot of people that are asking for certain things, for example, like PTSD to be added to the state cannabis log of allowed illnesses. In states like this, other states have it limited and you cannot add to them. But yeah, pretty much what Colorado had. I think 12 conditions plus severe chronic illness and terminal disease. There's also in Colorado, people forget that just because you may not have a medical card, a lot of these laws still leave the availability if you get in trouble with cannabis and you do have a medical condition, a severe medical condition, whatever, for that to be argued in court as medical necessity. It's the great thing about adding these things to the state constitution, the constitutional amendment. It is something that is a right afforded to the citizens 21 and over here in Colorado, and your right to defend that in a court of law. Just because the state's not issued you a permit or license, or just because you do not have it at the time, there are rules with medical marijuana programs and why it is important in some states that don't have a robust recreational or haven't decriminalized, why this medical marijuana programs stay valid. And some argue when we listen in on the hearings so heavily for medical programs, because there are protections in those medical programs that extend just beyond you being able to buy in a cannabis store, and those are important to preserve. I think a lot of the time it's overly, the access part is argued. It doesn't, a functional retail system of medical cannabis does not equal your right to be able to defend in law. In fact, A non-functional system of having retail cannabis would, back up your defense of personal medical use. If you were growing, however you were using your possession, etc., would strengthen that argument more. But still, ultimately, protections, not every state has those. Idaho will probably include these protections also, but at the same time, you've got a situation to where you're probably going to end up with a law that passed that says that you cannot pass medical marijuana, you can't pass none of this stuff. And that's unfortunate in Idaho. I would have figured that no state would have been able to do what Idaho is attempting to do and be as successful as they have it pass the House and have it be something that's moved past just conversation and talk. So that's a little bit scary. It's weird that that's happening at the same time that we're at opposite end of that conversation on a federal level. So it doesn't go hand in hand, and it shows that the representatives there, lawmakers, are completely out of touch. I'm going to skip the stock one, and then I think we'll get to Alabama tomorrow. We'll talk about that first. Alabama, talking about medical marijuana. This was also a big topic last year and the year before, and just like we mentioned in a few other states, COVID became a pretty big issue in Alabama's situation too. Whether they were going to have something that was passed, different story. But we will talk about that tomorrow first thing. 10 o'clock Mile High time here on the JDR. Same bad time, same bad channel is what we're working for every day. Try and get people used to the fact that, we're going every day and not just shooting from the hip. What I planned to do was be a lot more than I am. But the video games and news, I'm not going to build the same amount of people and the same people with video games as you are the news. Like, let's successful with the news, try and be as live as much as we can. But if we're not talking about news, I don't think we're going to keep people as much. I don't want to dilute. Like, I don't want to get people tired. Like, if they see we're just playing games. Anyway, that's where I think the 10 o'clock time will help. We need to be live as much as possible, period, end of story. Coherent, the ability for me to be able to functionally hold a conversation for as long as possible. And then on top of that, the 10 o'clock start time, as I was mentioning, I think that'll help. And then other times people will know, like, hey, it's not 10 o'clock as we build, listenership. It's not 10 o'clock. It's a good chance he's playing video games. We can keep those people. Anyway, I don't know. Just being live is probably the most important thing. But being live with the bread and butter as much as possible, like, we got to do that. I even considered sitting down and reading, just doing news, like a marathon, which could be done. I can do it. Sit down here and just pull up shit to talk about. We read off laws, we read off news stories, and get into that, like, just literal boring side and digging deep with it, just to attract attention, to be live, to get the follows. We're still early. I think just like what frustrated me, if we're talking one-to-one here, which we are, since we left this towards the end, I'm happy we didn't talk about this during the beginning. We left this kind of towards the end. But yeah, I think biting off and chewing more than what the expectations can handle right now is a big thing. But at the same time, we also need to see growth. So we can't go from 5-10 people who are in here listening to the show last week to no one, kind of this week, and see and operate what avenues and what roads we can kind of hit to bring more people in. So, there's some Instagram posts. We could do that. We'll do that tomorrow. And yeah, the only other thing is just me being here with a good quality product and catching people with my personality, which I think we've done. My gaming skills. I mean, I'm all right with the gaming skills. Catch you later. I've got decent gaming skills. And at the very least, I can talk shit while I'm doing it. The only thing I'm worried about is the monetary side of things. So I sat down last night, yesterday, worked on some things for the production side of it, changed some shit over. Hopefully I can eventually get the things I've made from Photoshop into here. Probably save them in a weird format that OBS does not like, and so it crashes. But me not worrying about the viewers, I can record to nobody, and as we did today, you know, we had a pretty good show, and we filled 2 hours completely of time, almost no feedback with the chat, 'cause there wasn't a whole lot of chat times. You know, we did address that and talk with that, and then as we add more people, it'll extend that time out. But 2 hours, me just being able to talk with news, and that's the point I kind of feel like I'm losing myself. And if we're gonna go longer than that, add something like right now, have something that's fun, or another person come in, me take a short little break, half an hour or so, and then re-energize, and then come back to the table. Because that's kind of how I feel like sometimes. It's like I go away for an hour or 2 hours, and it's like I could do this again. But then I think about, you know, 1 or 2 people there, and it's like, is it worth it? And then you feel depressed, and that whole bullshit side of things comes into play, and we can trim that off. I don't have to deal with that. We can just stay alive. So, and talk about weed. Having a good product on my side. What do you think of today's show? Like, did you think today went pretty fluently? You know, even at times I kind of veered off a little bit. I'd like to be a little bit more at a pinpoint of examples. You know, if I'm gonna bitch at someone or call someone out, I try to like point towards normal a little bit more. And then it'd be nice to have some examples of NCIA, you know, as we talked about that, and not just, you know, hearsay or people that don't know me, which is gonna be, you know, almost everyone if we can get this successful, and the connections I have, forming that with actual facts and backing information. So I need a producer like Grambo. I need a Jamie. I need someone who can research shiz as we're sitting here talking about it. I can look up things for me. It's like, hey, can you look up this definition for me? You know, and then they copy paste, send that off into Discord, channel, and or I could just pot up, switch to them live. They answer the question, or they have a video that they brought up. We can do it, and I can bring it together on my own. And I'm also thinking ahead of like when we have guests and stuff like that, and just to not have the show derail. It would just be nice to have a second in command that knows how to operate things, since it is live. And if there's things that need to be researched, we can't get a hold of someone. You know, we continue the show here, and then they or me, you know, they continue the show, and then I go try to find out where that person is or track something down. So it's not, you know, stopping the show. For now, I'd like to have that 2-3 hour package product of JDR that it's been. And then if it evolves past that, where it's just we're sitting here chilling, you know, like would love to have, you know, eventually, you know, a quarter of like what Hassan deals with, where it's just, you know, we're sitting here, we're talking, bringing up news stories and just bullshitting. That's what I see it eventually coming. Bullshitting with the chat. And talking back and forth, covering what we have to cover at first, and then having conversations back and forth between the chat. That ultimately would be where I see everything going, and that would be a long form, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours we could sit talking about things, politics wise, cannabis wise. If you have the community there, the cannabis community, there's always going to be things that we can discuss and be brought up. So I can handle the information and the content on that side. And then to be successful here, we got to add that other side of community and people in the chat giving me shit, you know. So all right, well, I do feel good. I felt good about today's show. We got some good things across. Spoke pretty well. I did not get frustrated with my performance that much, so yeah, we're good. We're back at it. Keep that goal and then add people. All right, I'm gonna cut out here and then edit this up to YouTube since yesterday's. I didn't want to upload yesterday's. Probably still throw yesterday's up there, but I felt like yesterday we kind of fell on our face a little bit. I fell on face. So. And then 2 shows a day. That's probably also something that's gonna happen quite often. Maybe not every day, but we'll do the same news, 10 o'clock. Do that and then go live again in the afternoon. That's a very basic way of being able to use the information that we have to the fullest extent and then staying live, you know. And then the people that are going to just be here to hang out as community, like they're going to be here anyway, you know. If we read those twice, like that's fine, you know. The people that want to come for that second one, are they're going to be the people that are the basis of our community, like 428 GTO. It's just been here every day. My only worry is I could sit here and read and go over information, but it's boring. We'll just read and go over information until somebody goes in chat and is like, "Hey, what about this?" And then I don't know. I want too much with something I should have been doing for years now. So thank you, Bike. You are the man. I appreciate you. Love you. Been great inspiration on that mental side of getting things moved forward, and I am drawing more than ever from the outside these news stories and other stuff that the rest of the inspiration and shit. So feeling pretty good about the show. So instead of worrying and not thinking I can do it, now it's like I want to hop into the show to have some fun and relax a little bit. So that feeling kind of came across last night after I laid down, worked through some shit with myself, and meditate, really, what it comes down to it. So I couldn't wait to get into it today. So that's good. I'm JDR. See ya.